What's up, guys? Get this shared. Alrighty. Just gonna jump out to the FXCM chart. Oops. Cool. There we go. So yeah, I mean, you're gonna notice like week to week, these things don't, especially when we're in a trending market, we're not like range bound or anything like that. These are going to be very, very similar. So as it stands for right now, if we just look out at the monthly, just kind of getting higher time frame perspective, understanding what the market's doing. On the FXCM chart, you're able to see just a lot more data to the left. Yeah, you can see that, like, I mean, there's really nothing holding this low whatsoever. We had an order flow shift, way back when, and then a realignment that happened here to be able to bring us down. If you're looking at this chart, it becomes pretty evident, what the next sort of move is. And I mean, this low needs to essentially get taken. We could potentially see a pullback somewhere along the lines of this level right here, start potentially seeing a couple bullish months as a pullback and then dropping again. But yeah, as it stands right now, you can just, it's so clear to be able to see like where the favorable positions would come from. And ultimately, staying on the sell side of the market is likely to reap the most benefits. So obviously we have, like I said, the order flow shift that sort of sits in here when we've essentially taken the low, taken the high. We've then, pushed through, failed to take out this more recent high over here, pushing back down. Now, how it sits, we're just kind of tinkering around in this low. We haven't actually taken it just yet, but there is some form of demand that rests, I guess you could say, in this wick. Now, and 2 seconds here, daily demand. Right, left. So I lost that. 2 seconds. Something here. Daily demand. Why is that not registered? Okay. So obviously we're starting to pull back a little wee bit on the daily once we started hitting into that extremity. Now, I personally don't think that we're going to see that big of a pullback. Let's get down onto a couple of the lower time frames just to be able to see what's going on a little bit further. Now, obviously, once we've sort of taken this guy out, right, we've taken the low. Again, this is the 4-hour. The next objective is, on this time frame at least, is to be able to start pulling back. Now, are we going to end up taking out these highs? I don't particularly think so. I think that reasonably we could maybe expect a pullback into mitigating maybe the equilibrium of the 4-hour leg from here to here, here to here, somewhere in these regions. But realistically, I still think that sells are going to be favorable kind of coming into this week. I don't think that we should be looking to play this into further levels up until that weekly low to the left-hand side is sort of played out. So, or taken rather. So yeah, I guess you could say, trades of the week, real like the levels that I'm really looking for to kind of sell away from are going to be ideally coming to at least mitigate this range. Not necessarily going to happen. We could very easily see a rollover and then maybe some form of a realignment to then come to the upside, and then that would switch the entire narrative. But as it stands right now, just looking at the data, it's really simple, right? I mean, we've had the break, and ideally we want to mitigate something within that region, right? To be able to take that higher time frame sell, wait for order flow to sort of realign on the 15, right? And then give us some sort of an entry to be able to take this into what we would think would be a weak low. So yeah, these calls are going to be relatively short, just moving forward, because quite frankly, they're very simple to kind of read the data from that higher time frame perspective, and what we could reasonably expect from the market. And yeah, as it stands right now, the 4 hour looks to be in that pullback phase. We get into the 15-minute. Again, we'll have to see how the market opens. But it looks like these highs should probably get taken at some point or another, and then that might trigger a whole bunch of different things that could happen, come back up. But the idea is that we want to be looking to trade our, I guess you would say, your most decent play for this week, somewhere in the upper half at the bare minimum. But ideally, we'd like to see it come up into this red shaded area in the most extreme supply areas. Excuse me. Any questions about this, guys? I mean, this should be relatively simple stuff. And like I said, moving forward, these calls are going to be some of the shorter ones for the week, just because, quite frankly, yeah, it's super easy to see what's going on in the higher time frame. You can go ahead, Knight.
Yeah, hey Tyson, can you hear me?
Okay. Oh, give me a second. My speakers are. Try that again.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, now I can hear you.
All right. Tyson, so I had this question regarding the high time frame. All right. So now imagine this demand doesn't hold and we are entering towards the monthly demand that you were looking at. So
let me go back up here.
Okay. So okay, let's just assume that we enter the given monthly demand. Now, what sort of time frame are you going to consider for a realignment? In the fact that you will, okay, like you'd state that, okay, it's time to look for longs, guys, or like, for something like that. So how would you perceive the market in that basis is my question.
So you're talking when we come down to maybe mitigate this to
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, the bottom line is like most of our strategy is based around what the 15-minute is doing, right? Because we have more of like a session-based approach or a day trader kind of approach. Now, obviously, I'm going to continue to take sells as long as everything tells me to take sells, right?
Sure.
In order for me to be able to start considering taking something pro trend, all the 15-minute needs to do is show itself that it wants to do that. Now, how I hold my positions might be a little bit different, but in terms of we can get into like a 15-minute pullback phase that happens here, could happen here, and then you could hold this longer against the higher time frame. But the same exact things apply, right? Like we just trade out what structure is telling us to trade out and how order flow is shifting in and around these regions, right? So yeah, for me, like a lot of people look to see like a 4 hour or a daily shift. Personally, I just trade what is available based off of how we trade, right? Which is ultimately, as soon as we see 15-minute do our thing, we have reason to believe that there is a pullback phase starting. And that's kind of like the beauty is like, you don't need to be the first one in. If you want to let order flow realign, you have to remember that the overall narrative is in that downtrend. Even if we're reversing from this area and starting to pull back, we can still assume that sells are favorable until we have some sort of like a double confirmation of some sort that is telling the market that we have reason to go this way.
For sure. Yeah. So my next question, I think, would be on the 15-minute.
Okay.
Yes, given the fact that assuming again that, okay, we are having a basic pullback into, let me just annotate, into this range that we were talking about, right?
Mhm.
So, would you consider to look into this, or based on the POI selection, would you consider this as the supply zone that you would want to look into?
Yeah. So, like I said, this would gain more relevance. This would gain more relevance depending on how we deliver into it, as
Okay,
opposed to
yeah,
me just
exactly.
saying
Yeah,
like, yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
to be honest with you, nobody knows how that's going to play, correct? The
true.
way that we
Yeah,
select a POI is actually not necessarily here. It's how we react to
it's
it
based
here.
on, yeah,
And these are the POIs that we want, right?
exactly. Yeah, 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 for sure.
So until we essentially see some sort of a deceleration, something that builds confluence around here, 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 until we see the realignment. And ideally, we'd like to see a sweep of some sort. That's when we can
Yeah,
start
for
selecting
sure.
POIs, right? So all we're really doing when we look to the left on like the um, larger swing structure is essentially we just want to be premiumly priced is the
True.
main idea, and then we can start to build out the idea that is this a reasonable area that the market could actually pull off or start delivering pro trend from, right?
For sure. Yeah. Man, thanks. Thanks a lot.
Okay, you're welcome. Does anybody else have a, yeah, so I'm just going to kind of expand on that a little wee bit, but yeah, the main thing with POI selection is it's a difference between POI selection and actually taking a trade as well, right? So like we can't guarantee that, like just given where we're at in price right now, how low we are, like we would never be able to select. You might get lucky, but you would never be able to select a POI and say that this is where the reversal is going to happen. That's not really how it works, right? How we're going to basically be able to get a lot more stability in how we pick our POI is once we actually start to come into these regions and we start to see our confirmations here, which is how we would select our POI here, right? We don't necessarily look to the left. We want to have a good idea. And this is why a lot of times you guys will see me use a mitigation of a range as opposed to, a single candle or a single few candles or a smaller range. The idea is that what really forms supply here is ultimately when, sorry, let me just get rid of my drawings. What ultimately forms supply here is this entire area, right? So you want to think about the market wanting to go back and mitigate more positions, right? And be able to jump in. So we can't guarantee that this is where it's going to happen, but what we can do is when we see that order flow shift and then some form of a realignment, we can then start taking these trades with a lot more confidence and be selecting POIs in the regions that we would actually want to trade from, because we're not looking to trade off of any of these levels until we see all the confirmations that are needed for us. Yeah, hopefully that's clear. Everybody got a good understanding of that. Don't forget about going over your long from Friday at some point. Yeah, so I'm just going to be filming over it later on this evening and just doing like a trade recap on it, like individually. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to it anyways, but yeah, I just need to remark up my stuff. So I will be putting it out a little bit later on this evening. If not, it'll be out tomorrow morning. Thanks for the reminder, dude. I've got one set as well. Does anybody else have any questions, guys? All good and clear. Last chance. Last chance. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So just remember, guys, like I said, in POI selection, you don't need to be right here. What you need to do is understand what would make this a valid POI. And the only way that we could really pick out a valid POI from this is by how we confirm in here. Okay. This is just an area that we want to be priced well, and how this develops here is a lot more important. Talked about releasing some videos. Do we expect that this week as well? Yeah, I have a few videos that are kind of archived right now. I just need to figure out which ones I actually want to post out of them. Unfortunately, they're just some of the liquidity concepts ones are it's kind of tough to talk about them in like kind of like black and white, like this is liquidity, this is liquidity, this is not. A lot of the stuff is very much in the given situation. So yeah, let me work on getting those out. I have a few filmed. I just want to make sure that I'm giving out the right data, and it's not going to make things more difficult than it needs to be. Anyways, I will hopefully this week, well, not hopefully, this week some point I will definitely get some out. I just don't know which ones I'm going to release as of yet. So let me work on that this week, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for the narrative. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your Sunday. I'll get this posted up shortly after this, and we'll see you this week. Have a good week, guys, and we'll catch you tomorrow.